Good morning, everybody, and the warmest of greetings from the heart of Europe. I'm sitting here in Brussels, just behind the headquarters of the European Commission and institutions, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the NorCore event this morning. It's a great shame that COVID doesn't allow us to meet in person today, but I do appreciate you taking the time to join us for what should be a fascinating 2 hours of discussion around the new cycle of European programmes, in particular Horizon Europe and Erasmus+, and the opportunities and potential that they offer for public sector organisations in Norway. So my name is Simon Pickard. I'm the Network Director for Science Business, Europe's leading media organisation focused on research and innovation policy. And I'm delighted to welcome you on behalf of the NorCore team, which has been doing such amazing work to build bridges between the Norwegian research, innovation and education communities and their peers across Europe and beyond. So as I say, we have 2 hours of exciting discussion to follow, and the purpose and the context of these discussions take place in what is a very momentous year for Europe. As many of you will be aware, the new European Commission took office a few months ago with one of the most ambitious agendas ever, with the Green Deal, digital transformation at its heart, and that, of course, before we were struck by the COVID pandemic. But despite COVID, we are on the cusp of a very exciting new era in European programmes, and in particular for research, innovation and education. At the beginning of 2021, Horizon Europe and Erasmus+ will be preparing to launch. And they aim to be the most inclusive and I think the most ambitious framework programmes that we have seen from the European Union. And inevitably, the public sector has a key role to play. So today is very much about exploring the opportunities for public sector stakeholders in Norway to engage with these programmes and to understand more broadly why it matters for Norway to be very much at the heart of Europe's research, innovation and education undertakings in the next 7 years. So a quick recap of what we have in store today. First, we'll be hearing from the Norwegian Mission to the EU. We will then move to some welcoming and opening remarks from the Minister for Research and Higher Education. We will then hear from two of the most senior officials overseeing Horizon Europe and Erasmus+ at the European Commission, with further comments from the Ministry for Research and Education in Norway. And then we will be hearing from a number of your own public sector agencies on their perspectives and their value proposition for engaging with Horizon and Erasmus. But to help us set the scene, first and foremost, I would like to welcome Per Strand Sjaastad, Deputy Chief of the Norwegian Mission to the EU, who will share some welcoming remarks on behalf of the Ambassador to the EU, Rolf Einar Fife, which of course, with the mission, has done so much to support the work of NorCore in building the bridges between Norway and its European communities. So, Mr. Sjaastad, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Dear Minister, dear Deputy Director General, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first thank you for letting me open this conference on behalf of the Norwegian Mission to the EU. And I'm very happy that so many people are able to take part here today. I must say we live in strange times. In the last 8 months, our lives have been fundamentally changed. COVID-19 has a huge impact on politics, on the economy, and on everyday life. Part of European cooperation has been under pressure due to this, such as mobility and trade. However, I think it is correct to say that cooperation has bounced back in a robust way. I do believe that Europe will come out stronger at the end of this pandemic. We need strong cooperation and joint efforts to solve our common challenges and build a sustainable future, as well as a strong public sector as an important part of this future. We are now definitely in a time of transition and great change. both in Europe and on a more global scale, in politics, in economy and industry, in climate and environment. This change does also have an impact on public entities. We all know that the public sector seeks to be an efficient provider of services and to establish good solutions and results for the public. It is important to be aware that taking part in EU programs is one of several opportunities public entities have when seeking to achieve these objectives. More in general, I would like to point out that Norway is a close partner in European cooperation, not as a full member of the European Union, but as an associated member in several fields, including the internal market, EU programs, justice affairs and Schengen cooperation, as well as close relations in foreign policy. Norway and the EU member states have many common interests related to the green shift, the digital economy, a strong and competitive industry, sustainable maritime sector, and not the least, rule of law, and we share common European values. Europe needs even more research, knowledge, innovation, and education. I think we can all agree. This is necessary to get the job done when promoting a positive development in society at large. I do also think that we all agree that knowledge and innovation drives economic growth and high quality public services and a vibrant public sector. Albert Einstein once said, "I have no special talents. I'm just extremely curious." It is about creating a culture of knowledge, also in the public domain. I know that Norway is a strong partner in the drive for knowledge and innovation, and we will remain so. We believe this will be decisive in ensuring a sustainable future. Our intention is to participate in Horizon Europe and the Erasmus Plus program starting next year. We will also participate in several other EU programs in the coming program period. I would like to underline that this provides a great opportunity also for the public sector in Norway. Investments in skills and innovation, in education and public services should remain a strong priority. I can assure you that taking part in EU programs is not only about the money. It is equally about partnerships and exchange of expertise and best practice. I can mention to you that I met a Norwegian team who had won a project of 6 million euros from the President's research program Horizon 2020. The project is a collaboration between hospitals, public entities, academic institutions, and companies across Europe with a base and coordination in Norway. The message from this very competent Norwegian team was the following. Getting the money was great, but getting access to new partnerships was perhaps even more important. Let me also underline that a strong Norwegian presence in Brussels is very important in this context. Both permanent offices of key Norwegian institutions, as well as visiting delegations from Norway when COVID-19 travel restrictions are lifted. I especially want to thank today's organizer, NorCore, for excellent cooperation. I believe you're doing a great job. And finally, let me wish you all welcome to this conference on discovering the opportunities for the public sector in EU programs. which is a very important and timely event. I hope you all will enjoy the conference and will find it useful for your activities and for your plans ahead. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for those rich comments, Mr. Sjaastad, and also for underlining not just the critical importance of research, innovation and education in tackling the great challenges we have before us in the years to come, but also the human dimension, the importance of cooperation and partnerships that these programs enable at a European and even international level. So let us now move on to hear from the Honourable Henrik Asheim, Minister for Research and Higher Education for the Government of Norway, who will share with us some thoughts on how research, innovation and education and the European programmes fit within the broader Norwegian political context and may help Norway to achieve its own objectives in the years to come. Mr. Asheim, the floor is yours.
Dear Deputy Director Generals, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I truly believe in the programs and the cooperative projects that we will be presented today and the European cooperation. The last months with the COVID-19 pandemic has truly showed us how real the needs can be for an international perspective on both problems and solutions. What also has become crystal clear is that we need a well-functioning public sector, and that the public sector research, innovation and education plays an important part in meeting the pandemic. Today we will look at how all these resources can work with the next framework programs. It is important that we continue to promote links between research, innovation and education. Both Erasmus Plus and Horizon Europe focus on the green shift, entrepreneurship, digital transformation and innovation. The new programs will have many of the same features, and social challenges and problem solving will remain in focus. The effect of climate change are undeniable. All countries will experience demographic changes that impact our workforce and our healthcare, cities and public services. To meet the challenges, we need to translate project results so they can make an impact in the society and the economy and involve our citizens. New initiatives such as Mission and European universities are good examples of how we need to work to solve major challenges. There are several reasons why the public sector is important in coming programs. You have first-hand knowledge about local and regional conditions. This means you understand what needs to be done and why, now and in the future. You are close to the public. You're therefore vital to achieve solutions that have accountability and that works. And you already work well across all sectors and can therefore create products and services that see the whole picture. The new programs are important because they reflect our new challenges. People live longer and the need for healthcare services increase. We know there will be less people in the national workforce and that public finances will be more strained. And climate change will affect us in several ways. For the public sector, this will most likely mean increased demand to be more innovative and more effective. To meet these challenges, we need European cooperation. The challenges ahead are too big to tackle alone, and I believe European cooperation is an excellent opportunity to test ideas and bring them back to the local, regional and national level. As you know, the government has proposed that Norway should participate in Erasmus Plus and Horizon Europe. We, of course, need parliamentary consent, but I am very happy with the conclusion we have so far. My ambition is that Norwegian stakeholders should be active and participate even more in the next framework programs. And just as a reminder and a reassuring word, as an EEA-EFTA state, we will participate on equal terms and have the same rights as the participants from the member states for funding. Looking ahead, I am certain you can make an impact that matters. The public sector stakeholders are becoming even more successful in Erasmus Plus and Horizon 2020. The public sector also participates actively through other European funding schemes, such as EEA and Norway grants and Interreg. This tells me that you are innovative, that you achieve results, and that you add value. An example of this is the project Bridges with Trøndelag County Council. The project received funding this year through the Center of Vocational Excellence pilot in Erasmus+. The project was set to increase cooperation in fish farming between upper secondary and vocational schools, local enterprises, industry, researchers, and academia. Another example is the project Flagship, where Norled and NCE Maritime Clean Tech are receiving funding through Horizon 2020 to develop a ferry that runs on hydrogen and will be part of the public transportation network in Stavanger municipality. A third example is the Horizon 2020 project Aase that aims to improve security measures and preparedness for rescue services in the High North. The Joint Rescue Coordination Center in Northern Norway, Nord University, and the Coast Guard are some of the Norwegian partners. What strikes me is that these projects are designed to meet local and specific needs, but have universal solutions, and they demonstrate that the public sector solves challenges while helping to create new research, technology, or new business opportunities. I would love to see more projects like these. And I believe there is room for you to participate even more in the coming programs. If I should give you any advice on how to prepare, I would say this. First, start early. Contact the Norwegian Agency for International Cooperation and Quality Enhancement in Higher Education, Innovation Norway, or Research Council Norway. They can help you navigate and discuss projects opportunities. Second, don't forget to use the resources you have at hand. Regions in Norway are now represented in Brussels and do great work. Use NorCore and your interest organizations actively. And third, investigate project ideas. Reach out to old and new partners. Use this as an opportunity to elevate your goals. We are aware that the EU arena is one of the most competitive arenas for project funding in the world. For many, EU participation can indeed be a question of capacity, not motivation. My advice for you would be to remember that there are many ways you can contribute. Be part of a steering group or work together with a university or a research institute. Right now, we are working on 2 national strategies to help you be prepared, and we plan to launch the strategies next year. One on Norwegian participation in European cooperation on research and education, and the second on our participation in European cooperation on education. The strategies will be launched by the government, but we need your input and help to make the strategies as relevant and effective as possible. We will issue an invitation to give input shortly, and I urge all relevant stakeholders in the public sector to use this opportunity to contribute. That way, we can formulate strategies that promote and support your engagement in Horizon Europe and Erasmus+. I look forward to your feedback. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best with the conference.
And thank you to Minister Asheim and to Mr. Sjaastad for what I think is an incredibly clear expression of Norway's commitment both to the European project and the excitement that the government and other agencies feel for the programs ahead. And so it's now time to dive deeper into the new EU programs themselves and the possibilities and opportunities that they present for the public sector in Norway. And to help us understand this sometimes complex labyrinthine world generating here in Brussels, we're fortunate to have 2 very eminent guides with us from the European Commission to explain what is coming through the pipeline and how public sector actors in Norway may be able to benefit and engage. So first we will hear from Viviane Hoffmann, who is the Deputy Director General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture since 2018. And after her presentation on Erasmus+, we will hear from Patrick Child, Deputy Director General at DG Research and Innovation, with oversight for implementation, impact and sustainable investment strategies. We thank you both for taking the time to join us today. So both Viviane and Patrick have been asked to tell us what's new for public sector actors around Erasmus Plus and Horizon Europe. If you have questions for them, I invite you to write them into the Q&A function in Zoom. They will be handled by the NorCore moderating team, and as time permits, we will try to bring those into the conversation a little later, when we will also be accompanied by State Secretary from the Ministry of Research and Education. But let's begin with Viviane. 15 minutes for you to tell us all about Erasmus Plus and what the value proposition is for Norwegian public sector stakeholders to engage. Viviane, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Minister, dear Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very happy to participate in this conference. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very well aware of the very important role that Norwegian local and regional authorities play in education and training, and therefore I find it so relevant and timely to discuss now how the public sector can make full use of all cooperation opportunities at EU level. So let me start by talking a little bit about the Erasmus Plus program. As you know, many possibilities exist under this program, such as mobility, of course, strategic partnerships, knowledge alliances, capacity building, you name them. And here, local authorities, city administrations, municipalities may use these opportunities to work together with partners across Europe on innovative and inspiring projects. And of course, they can cover a very broad range of areas, projects on education and training, greening, transport, urban development, digitalization, and so on. Under the new program, we will introduce 3 new actions that can be used strategically. And I will start with simplification. And when I say simplification, I talk about a new accreditation scheme for school education, vocational education and training, and adult education. Why is this? Accreditation will simplify access to Erasmus co-funding opportunities and for mobility, and will therefore increase inclusion. It will help, for instance, countries and municipalities to involve pupils and learners or teachers from remote or disadvantaged areas in activities with their peers abroad. So simplification through this accreditation system is one of the new features I think that will be relevant for your activities. Secondly, vocational education and training. And here, let me just briefly mention the centers of vocational excellence. These centers, which are actually platforms, in other words, will increase the attractiveness of vocational education and training and ensure that it helps provide adequate skills. And they should also contribute to regional development, innovation, and smart specialization strategies, being firmly established within regional and local contexts, while at the same time operating across borders at transnational level. So these centers of vocational excellence will form strong partnerships between the vocational education and training community and the world of work, both at national level and across borders. And then thirdly, let me mention the future Erasmus teacher academies. International mobility of teachers during their initial education or throughout their careers is not yet very common and differs also considerably between the countries. Yet mutual learning and joint innovation should become more common for teacher education. And this is why we propose the Erasmus Teacher Academies, which will be networks of teacher education institutions, providing teachers and future teachers with enhanced learning opportunities on, for instance, digitalization, inclusion, environmental sustainability, and teaching in multilingual classrooms, to mention a few examples. Now, These initiatives, and there are others, of course, will be part of our work to establish the European education area by 2025, and synergies between the European education area and the renewed European research area will help develop interconnected knowledge ecosystems, including all the regions in Europe, and placing higher education institutions at their core. We are very pleased to see the involvement of national, regional and local public bodies in more than 1,500 higher education strategic partnerships and policy reform projects that were funded in the past 7 years. Yet, I think we can do more to expand those partnerships between higher education and the public sector to involve research and innovation partners in the knowledge ecosystems and in the dissemination of results and practices, so that integrated, sustainable solutions to the challenges that our societies and countries face currently are ensured. Now, this is part of a larger transformation agenda for higher education that will reach out to more than 5,000 higher education institutions across Europe, promoting structural systemic changes for inclusive and future-proof learning and teaching and research. And again, this includes strengthening the links between higher education, research and innovation. And this transformation agenda will focus on seamless cooperation between higher education institutions across Europe and with their surrounding ecosystems and society. It will be inclusive, opening up to all types of higher education institutions, to all student and researcher populations of all ages. It will address digital and green readiness and resilience. Socio-economic innovation capacity will be boosted through interdisciplinary and challenge-based approaches. Now, this agenda will build on the experience of the European University Alliances that were selected and supported under the Erasmus program and are also supported under Horizon 2020. They will work together with the national authorities and wider stakeholder communities to address concrete obstacles in order to advance education, research and innovation policies. Now, I would like to congratulate Norway on your success. Norwegian higher education institutions are partners in 5 European universities, one of which is coordinated by the University of Oslo. European universities, and I want to say a few more words about them, because they are pioneering different models of knowledge ecosystems at unprecedented levels of cooperation with a multitude of partners from the public and private sector. And they adopt a multidisciplinary, intersectoral, challenge-based approach to learning, teaching, and research. And they cover very many areas. So, for instance, European universities with Norwegian participation cover European studies, global cybersecurity, digitization, artificial intelligence, climate change, aging societies, and migration. Now, I would also like to mention Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, which are funded under Horizon Europe, and they will also further contribute to strengthening knowledge ecosystems. As you know, through excellent doctoral networks and bottom-up applied research projects, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions train a new generation of highly skilled researchers who are able to convert knowledge and ideas into products and services for economic and social benefit. And the renewed action will further incentivize intersectoral cooperation between the academic and non-academic sectors. And let me also briefly mention the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, the EIT, which will also keep supporting research, innovation and entrepreneurship in the knowledge triangle. It is the largest EU innovation ecosystem with over 2,000 partners spread over 60 co-location centers in the different countries with more than 3,200 companies. And synergies between the EIT and other policy priorities, funding opportunities at national, regional and EU level will be increased. So, as you see, our programs for 21-27 will offer even more opportunities to strengthen knowledge ecosystems. And I'm very happy that the Norwegian public sector is so interested in knowing more about these new opportunities and how to use Erasmus Plus as an effective knowledge policy and program tool contributing to national education goals. Thank you so much for our excellent cooperation, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hoffmann, not only for trying in a concise and very clear way to explain the breadth and the complexity of all of the opportunities that are available to the higher education community across Europe to engage with Erasmus+, but of course to underline the ambition and how committed the Commission is to making the future education and skills development programs in Europe fit for purpose as we enter these transformations around environment, society, pandemic preparedness, and of course the digital age. So we shall return to you with a few more questions later, but now let's hand the floor to Patrick Child, Deputy Director General at DG Research and Innovation, who has been one of the key architects of Horizon Europe, the framework programme for research and innovation, which will, we heard quite positively, have a little more money in its pot earlier this week. And so, Patrick, I'm sure that's obviously a very positive note on which to start, but I hand the floor to you now to try and give us a guide about what Horizon Europe involves and what you see as some of the priorities and opportunities for public sector involvement. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure for me to be here to participate in this NorCore event, and I'd like to thank all of you for this opportunity to engage with Norwegian authorities, cities and stakeholders about the exciting opportunities that we see ahead for collaboration and funding under the European Union's research and innovation framework programs, both Horizon 2020, our present program, and of course, our future Horizon Europe program. And I'd like to start with a few words on the extremely successful experience that we've had in cooperation with Norway in our research and innovation programs. Among the associated countries, Norway is the second most successful participation under Horizon 2020, and that your contribution is not only remarkable because of its quantity, but also the quality. And this is reflected in the excellent overall success rate of Norwegian applicants in our collaborative research actions, which is significantly higher than the overall success rate across the program. And I think that this high success rate reflects the quality and internationally recognized standards of innovation, the public research system, and the highly skilled human resources more generally in Norwegian society. And so we see this beneficial, mutually beneficial cooperation translated in many successful projects with very high quality outcomes and impacts, of huge relevance to the overall political goals of the European Union, starting, of course, at the moment with the European Green Deal, at the center of our green and digital post-COVID recovery strategy. And I'd like just to highlight one very successful project, which is the Intaros project, coordinated by the Norwegian Nansen Environmental and Remote Sensing Center. This is a project that is developing an integrated Arctic observation system by bringing together different systems over the whole region into a unified network. And it should improve our ability to monitor air and water temperature changes and consequently help the definition of measures for the protection of the Arctic environment, fully aligned on our Green Deal objectives. And I think we wouldn't have achieved this sort of system without the support of an impressive transnational team of different actors and different research organizations, including and different authorities. And I think that this is a very good illustration of Norway's successful engagement with the European framework programs. As we've heard, I mean, we've in the last days, the Commission and the Council and the European Parliament have come to an agreement on the overall sort of political shape of the EU's budget for the next 7 years in the multi-annual financial framework, including an extremely welcome reinforcement in the budgets for a number of issues, the EU for Health, of course, given the health crisis, but also Erasmus Plus and Horizon Europe, with Horizon Europe reinforced by 4 billion euros, which, together with the previous reinforcement that we were able to secure as part of the next generation EU post-COVID recovery funds, we now have a budget for Horizon Europe for the next 7 years, which is very close to the original proposal from the Commission of 90 billion euros. Now that we have the sort of agreement on the budget and on the legal text for Horizon Europe, it's also great news that the Commission, Council and Parliament are working hard on the implementation of the association provisions for countries, and traditionally Norway, of course, has been a very strong partner, and we hope that as soon as possible, after the Horizon Europe regulation has been formally adopted, we will be able to put in place the new association arrangements based, as you've said, on the EEA agreement to continue this excellent cooperation in future. So I now turn to some of the new features of Horizon Europe by comparison with Horizon 2020, and underline that to a large extent we're talking about an evolution rather than a revolution. So Horizon Europe is designed to build on the strong successes of Horizon 2020. So as with Horizon 2020, it will have a 3-pillar structure. First pillar on excellent science, second pillar on global challenges and competitiveness, where we deal with many thematic topics, and a third and very important topic, pillar devoted to open innovation. And running across the whole program alongside these 3 pillars, we have cross-cutting objectives on widening participation, so to encourage and support all member states and associated countries to reach the high standards of excellence which define our program, and also to strengthen the European research area. So, as I said, not a revolution by comparison with Horizon 2020, but nevertheless, Horizon Europe has some important new features, which I think will offer new opportunities also for the public sector and public authorities. I suppose the first and most prominent is our new emphasis on Horizon Europe missions. This is the opportunity to establish some headline objectives, goals, inspiring societal challenges to reconnect citizens and to impress on a broader audience the value of the EU's research and innovation work. And through the missions, we also hope to promote interdisciplinary coordination and to address some of the most complex challenges that we have in society. A second important development in Horizon Europe will be the creation of the European Innovation Council. This is a new body intended to provide a one-stop shop to give support to high potential innovators, both in the scaling up and startup phase in where we perhaps do least well in Europe, and that is translating the excellent scientific solutions that we have into quick commercial and economic success. And so with the creation of the European Innovation Council, we're hoping to achieve the same sort of gold standard success that we have achieved for the European Research Council in terms of fundamental research. Another important new dimension in Horizon Europe will be an additional emphasis on synergies with other EU programs and other national funding programs, we hope. And we think that this is an area in particular where regions, cities and local municipalities will be able to work with us to federate different sources of EU funding, whether it's from the EU structural funds, the European Investment Bank, the new InvestEU program, and other important EU funding programs, and so that we make sure that the EU money that we have available goes as far as possible and is used in the most joined up and coherent way. Also, under Horizon Europe, we have a fresh look at European partnerships to support our work on global challenges, and in particular, how we cooperate in key industrial sectors. And so here we will be developing partnerships in a whole range of areas to bring together our research and innovations with member states, private sector, foundations and other stakeholders. And we hope that here too there will be new opportunities for local and regional authorities to work with us. I mean, under Horizon 2020, the main beneficiaries of our funding have been secondary and higher education institutions, as I guess you might expect, followed by private profit companies, and then research organizations. But nevertheless, public bodies, public authorities have accounted for 5.5% of overall participations, with 2,600 distinct public bodies involved, and therefore attracted more than 3% of the overall budget. So, I mean, we have a good starting point, but I think many opportunities ahead. And of course, beyond the participation in the cooperation and support actions between public authorities, public bodies are also typically able to work with us in public-public or public-private partnerships. And so we hope that this will be a new dimension of our collaborative work together, enabling us to work even more intensely with public organizations, public authorities in developing visions and in setting our strategic agendas. And I think that our track record of working with Norwegian public entities is extremely encouraging. And so I would strongly support your continued efforts to intensify your work in this area. So that's a little bit, what we are seeing in terms of the new elements of Horizon Europe. And I now just perhaps say a word about where we are in the preparation of the first work programs of Horizon Europe. Now that we have a reasonably solid agreement both on the legal text and on the budget for Horizon Europe, we are finalizing what we call our strategic plan. So this is a sort of an overarching strategic document which will cover the sort of main ambitions for the first 4 years of Horizon Europe, and will define, therefore, the impacts that we hope to target through our different activities, as well as how Horizon Europe will contribute to and support the overall political goals of the European Union, address societal challenges, as well as adding value for citizens and business. And this will as I say, be adopted, we hope, before the end of the year. And I've been very happy to see the active cooperation of the Norwegian authorities in helping us to shape this first strategic plan, as well as the first work programs of Horizon Europe, which are under discussion at the moment in our program committees, and which we hope will be finalized by April of next year, so that we can start with the first calls under Horizon Europe from next spring. I'd like now perhaps to turn to more specific opportunities that we see in future under our framework programs related to the work of cities and municipal authorities, because I think we all recognize that cities are major contributors to some of our key research and innovation objectives, starting perhaps with climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution and resource depletion, but also have a game-changing capacity given the potential for innovation and capital investment looking ahead. So we are putting a lot of emphasis in our work under both Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe on engaging with cities and seeing how the contribution of cities to, in particular, our objectives in the European Green Deal and in the post-COVID recovery can be raised to a new level. Under previous framework programs, we've already, in the last period, almost doubled what we've been doing in cities, and Norwegian participation has been strong in this area as well. We have at the moment, still under Horizon 2020, an ongoing major call to support the kickstarting of the European Green Deal, a call that's in the order of 1 billion euros, which was opened in September and which will close in January. And this includes a specific topic on climate neutral and socially innovative cities, with the aim of boosting technological development, demonstration and experimentation in social innovation in cities. And so I think this is an exciting opportunity which merits your attention. We also have under Horizon Europe, one of the 5 missions that I was mentioning. I mean, we've been working on, as part of our new dimension of Horizon Europe, we have missions on cancer, healthy oceans, climate adaptation, soil and food, but also a specific mission dedicated on climate neutral and smart cities. And the Commission services are very actively working now on proposals that we've received from groups of experts, mission boards, as we call them, who've been helping us to develop possible mission areas. And during the course of next year, we will decide and present our ideas for the future for these missions. But I very much hope that in the final decisions, we will pick up this mission on smart and climate neutral cities, with the objective of having 100 European cities fully climate neutral by 2030. And I would be very happy to see 1 or 2 Norwegian cities being in this flagship initiative. In addition to the Horizon Europe mission, we have a number of the partnerships under Horizon Europe, which will be very relevant to cities. We have a partnership on driving urban transitions. We have a partnership on the clean energy transition more generally. We have a partnership on the built environment, on connected and automated driving, as well as other mobility partnerships. And we'll be working also with cities on things like biodiversity, to safeguard life on Earth and water security. So cities, municipalities and local authorities are fully eligible to participate in these activities under our partnerships. And we also are keen to see a continuing strand of traditional Horizon Europe calls from all pillars across the programme, many of which I hope will give us an opportunity to look at demonstration in the improvements in urban environments and urban living labs. From Maria Gabriel, our Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture and Education and Youth, citizens' engagement is a very important theme and should be at the heart of the work we're doing to prepare Horizon Europe, and we're therefore putting a lot of emphasis on citizens' engagement and ensuring that we are able to understand how the huge-scale transitions that we are confronted are both human-centered, that they contribute to well-being and quality of life and prosperity, ensuring, of course, that nobody is left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would want to welcome again what we hope will be the imminent renewal of Norway's association to Horizon Europe. This, we believe, will enable us to continue seamlessly our excellent and mutually beneficial cooperation, and to confirm Europe's position as a global leader across education, research and innovation. We are looking forward to Norway continuing to play its extremely constructive role in the framing, deepening and further consolidation of the European research area, in line with our recent communications, and Viviane's mentioned them, on the European education area and the European research area. And through these new initiatives, we are working also to unlock the potential of our top universities with the higher education transformation agenda that Viviane has highlighted. So to conclude, again, I would like just to offer my sincere thanks to all of you for your hugely valuable contributions to the shaping of Horizon Europe. These actions, we're convinced, will help to ensure that research and innovation will respond to the challenges of the transformation to a climate neutral Europe, which is the goal, of course, of the European Green Deal. And we are convinced that public authorities at all levels and the citizens that they serve are going to be key actors. And with the European Research and Innovation Programmes, we will continue to provide all the support that we can. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. It's always an unenviable task to try and explain Horizon Europe in such a short period of time, but a fantastic job, not just in terms of putting it in the context of Europe's broader long-term strategic goals, but some very concrete components of the programme which public sector actors can look forward to in the years to come. Now, we will shortly be bringing in State Secretary Aase Marthe Horrigmo to a wider conversation, but as a transition to that discussion, I have a question from the audience for Mr. Child and Ms. Hoffmann, which is about the synergies between research, innovation and education, and between Horizon and Erasmus. And the question is essentially how you see that developing concretely in the years to come. Should we perhaps expect joint calls or initiatives between the two programs? And how do you think there may be some complementarity even in terms of evaluation and the impact that research and innovation can make on education and vice versa? Perhaps Ms. Hoffmann, would you like to take that first?
Thank you very much for this question. Yes, indeed. We want to boost the interaction between education at all levels, including non-formal learning, by the way, and research and innovation. And of course, we have started working together to achieve this enhanced cooperation, enhanced synergies and complementarities. So this is an important, I think, approach for the future European knowledge strategy, which will bring together the European education area and the European research area. And these synergies will be very instrumental. The exact modalities are under preparation, obviously, but already now you can see that these synergies have started materializing, and I mentioned earlier on the example of the European Universities Initiative, which is currently, as you will know, piloted under Erasmus Plus, so bringing together universities in 41 European University Alliances, and it is one of the flagship initiatives of the European education area, and we want to further roll it out in the context of the new Erasmus program. So what I meant to say in terms of synergies here is that Horizon 2020 has already this year complemented this Erasmus Plus European Universities Initiative with a top-up for the research dimension by providing 2 million additional funding for targeting research and innovation activities for these 41 selected European universities. So this is one of the concrete examples, and as I said, and Patrick will tell us more, I think we are working on this and make sure it will materialize during the next funding period. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Child, would you like to add anything further?
Well, I agree absolutely with what Viviane has said, and indeed it's a key priority. I mean, I think that the good news for all of us is that we now have, under this commission, we have Maria Gabriel as the commissioner who is responsible both for Horizon Europe and for Erasmus and for the European education area as well as the European research area. So we're in an extremely strong position in terms of our own internal organization to make sure that we identify all the possible opportunities for working together and synergies that there are. And as Viviane has said, there's already some work in progress that is already bearing fruit. I mean, having said that, of course, the two programs are to some extent distinct and different. And so, I mean, I think that we need also to preserve the strengths of the respective programs and make sure that as we seek these greater synergies, that we also keep hold of the strong strengths that we have within our existing work. But it is a journey that we are engaged on, and if anyone participating today has some specific suggestions. I mean, I heard you mention, for example, the sort of joint calls and evaluation. That may be challenging given the way we organize things, but other ideas where we can boost these synergies, we'd be, I think, very keen to hear of them.
Thank you. So let me take the opportunity now to formally welcome Aase Marthe Horrigmo, State Secretary for Research and Education at the Norwegian Ministry. A very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us, Aase. So we've heard already this morning about the general direction of travel for these flagship programs, Horizon Europe and Erasmus+. And we've also heard from Minister Asheim that there is a strong commitment on the part of the government to try and harness these synergies between research, innovation and education. I feel this is a long-standing agenda and priority for the government. So when you look at where the Commission is in its planning and its long-term goals for these programs, are you encouraged? Do you feel that we're headed in the right direction? And what do you see as the opportunities at national and regional level for Norwegian public sector actors to be involved?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think I'm very much encouraged by what we've seen so far. Stronger synergies are important as well to us in our own government, and we're really glad to see the way the Commission has now arranged for the more institutional setup. As Mr. Child was saying, there is a common, the same commissioner now in Commissioner Gabriel for both education, innovation and research, and I think that is an advantage. And also the fact that the Commission is clear on the need for synergies to make priorities such as pointing, to the green shift, digital transition, and to make that a success. And I think as Viviane Hoffmann also mentioned, the European University initiatives and the Centres also of Vocational Excellence are both initiatives that seek to combine both innovation, education and research. And I think that's very much a step in the right direction. So we're glad to see this. But we also know that this is not straightforward, and it can be difficult to translate ambitions also into practical solutions. But we applaud what the Commission has done so far, and I think this will be, of course, also an advantage to our municipalities and regional actors that need to see both education and research and innovation together when they also in their work. So definitely a step in the right direction.
Thank you. And a related question to that, I mean, from the ministry perspective, what do you see as the key selling points for municipalities, cities, regions and other public sector actors to play an active role in engaging with the programs?
Well, we need to mobilize more regional and local actors into participation into Horizon, especially, but also Erasmus. So the biggest selling point is perhaps the opportunity to get funding, of course. But we do see that our municipalities, when they do participate in Horizon applications, their success rate is quite high. So that says a lot about the quality of the projects that they develop, which is a very good point of departure. But of course, we need to make sure that more do participate, and that will be a priority for us from the government side. But we do see that when in the projects that they have gotten funding for so far, these are projects that will help them provide better services to their inhabitants. And I think that's maybe the best selling point.
Thank you. I think that's a critical point, and I would actually like to pass this on to Mr. Child and Ms. Hoffmann as well. I mean, I think one of the real novelties of the framework programs coming through in 2021 is the ambition to have a much higher level of citizen engagement, and of course public sector actors are that much closer, arguably, to the public than many other conventional actors. So looking ahead, I mean, if we cast the lens out 5, 7, 10 years, do you have any particular targets or ambitions for the level of public sector participation in Horizon and Erasmus? Do you see them as playing new roles, as new connecting points between science, industry, government and society? And how do you think that may look? Perhaps Mr. Child, if you'd like to go first.
No, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think that we've seen an increasing trend towards what I could call sort of a place-based focus to some of the research and innovation activities that we've been supporting under Horizon 2020. And I can imagine that that's something that will be further reinforced under Horizon Europe. And that one dimension of that is to see indeed local authorities engaging with education organizations, universities, research bodies in their local communities, where they are not only contributing to the research activities, but also using the networks and contacts that they have with the local communities and citizens in order to take it beyond a sort of consultation process to a more co-creation sort of dynamic where the research activities priorities are being to some extent designed and influenced in direct conversations with the local communities, facilitated by the municipal and local authorities who have those contacts. This is very much a feature of what we've been doing in the preparation of the possible cities mission that I mentioned. I was last week involved in an online event with the city of Pau in the south of France, where we were talking about their ambitions to become carbon neutral in that city, and really engaging upstream as we're designing the programs with citizens, as well as then, of course, consulting and involving citizens in the implementation. I think that's the big sort of qualitative shift that I would like to see, and which to some extent is already happening.
Thank you. And Ms. Hoffmann, a similar reflection with regards to the education programs and Erasmus+?
Yes, certainly. As I mentioned earlier, it is important for us, for instance, that universities, European universities, are embedded in their local environment and can work on local challenges together with public authorities, with businesses as well. So in a more general way, I would say, of course, more public sector involvement would be highly welcome, but I would also say that the commitment of all the actors is very important when we look at all the challenges that were also mentioned earlier this morning. Then we think that the relevance of education, of training, of higher education for the recovery, for Europe's recovery and the times beyond is so important that I think everybody is needed. Let me just say very briefly again that what we want, what our ambition is for the future Erasmus program is also to be more open, more inclusive. And by that, I want to stress that currently less than 5% of young people have access to Erasmus. So we want to open it up beyond making it more greener and more innovative. So, but again, the point I am making is the relevance of education training for the recovery and resilience of our society, but for democracy of our societies is such that, of course, we very much welcome this public sector involvement.
Thank you very much. And before I turn to Ms. Horrigmo with a related question, there's one very practical one for you, Ms. Hoffmann, from an audience member, which is about the European Universities Initiative and whether or not there will be a new call in 2021. Is there something new to look forward to in that particular programme?
As you know, we have now been piloting this project. Now we are taking stock after this first initial pilot experience, and there will be no call immediately, but later on when the initiative is going to be rolled out in the context of the new Erasmus program. So that's not for next year.
Very good, thank you. Now, Ms. Horrigmo, obviously for your position, for the ministry, There's a balancing act between national initiatives and following Europe's lead. So I wonder, are there any new important initiatives or new policies that the Ministry is planning as a response or a reaction to the imminent launch of Horizon and Erasmus+, which will have direct impact on Norway's research, innovation and education stakeholders? How are you going to ensure that there is a close political alignment at national and regional level with the bigger picture at European level?
Well, thank you. We are now working with the new strategy on how to mobilize the actors into Horizon and Erasmus, and that's a process that was just launched. On the other hand, in terms of our overall research and innovation policies, they are to quite a large degree closely aligned with European policies. And I think that our long-term plan, for instance, for education and research, has many of the same priorities as what Erasmus and Horizon have. So in many ways, we are already aligned with what is happening at the European level. The long-term plan will be also renewed, so there will be a new process where we look at the priorities in the plan. But for now, quality in higher education, stronger synergies between research and innovation are important prioritizations in the ongoing plan. And so is seas and oceans and climate and energy, which we know that will be important in the new Horizon program. And we're also glad to see some of this reflected in the proposed new missions and adaptation to climate change. Of course, societal transformation, healthy oceans is of course important to us. Smart cities and soil and health also. So to a large degree, there is an alignment already, and we closely review what's going on in the EU when we also develop our own policies.
And that, I think, is perhaps it's a good segue to come back to a topic or a significant programme which has been mentioned on a few occasions here, which is the European Green Deal. And I think perhaps just for the benefit of the audience back in Norway, for Mr. Child and Ms. Hoffmann, could you just say a quick word on how this will be reflected concretely in the first round of programmes to be launched, or work programmes to be launched under Horizon Europe and under Erasmus+? What's it going to look like in practice? Perhaps Mr. Child, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, maybe I could start. I mean, the European Green Deal, as I said earlier, is the sort of overarching, defining political goal of the van der Leyen Commission, and broadly supported across the European Union. So, I mean, we have this headline objective of full decarbonisation by 2050, to be the first carbon neutral continent by 2050, which is going to be very challenging, and which is going to require a huge investment in terms of both sort of societal and economic transformation, which will only happen if there is a really strong input from research and innovation. So in the different dimensions of the European Green Deal, which we've been presenting over the last 12 months or so since the launch at the end of 2019, we've touched on topics like a new industrial strategy, a circular economy action plan, a number of specific initiatives in the energy sector, from sector integration, offshore renewables is coming up in a few days' time. We've looked at biodiversity, we've looked at farm to fork strategy, looking at agriculture and sustainable food production. So in all these different dimensions, we see very strong research and innovation needs. And these issues are therefore now being built into the draft work programs for Horizon Europe that we are preparing in discussion with member states and our associated countries. And in some of the thematic areas, like the one I'm most involved in, which is the so-called Cluster 5, which is covering energy, mobility, and climate. More or less all that we're doing is about creating the research and innovation conditions needed to support the Green Deal. The same is true in the cluster 6, which is dealing with agriculture and the environment. But there are also strong Green Deal components in other parts of the program, in particular the cluster 4, which is about industry and digital transformation. So you will see, I think, in the work programs that Horizon Europe will produce, a really sort of cross-cutting theme of things to do to support the European Green Deal. And as I said earlier, I mean, we already have now ongoing this European Green Deal call, 1 billion euros, which is open now until January, which has, I focused in my introductory remarks on the cities dimension, but in fact it has sort of 7 or 8 components that are all sort of aligned on the main dimensions of the European Green Deal, where we see opportunities for early wins in terms of demonstration projects to show how research and innovation can support and drive the necessary economic, ecological, and societal transformations that are necessary as we strive for this full decarbonisation objective as part of our post-COVID green and digital recovery strategy.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hoffmann, anything you would care to add to that?
Thank you. Maybe briefly, just to say again that inclusion and digitization and the green transition will be cross-cutting priorities of the new program, the new Erasmus program. So this means that all projects should integrate its dimensions, and without preempting the new program guide, one could think of the fact that these priorities will be part of the award criteria for cooperation projects, that financial incentives related to these priorities could be foreseen in specific actions like mobility, and that new activities, for instance, blended mobility, that is physical mobility combined with online activities, will be promoted. But this will be worked out more in detail, obviously. Thank you.
Well, I think this is a segue into our final question before we wrap up this part of the conference. And it's actually a question from one of the audience members, which is about how we support or encourage closer cooperation between public sector actors and companies, large and small. And so perhaps, Ms. Horrigmo, from the ministry's perspective first, what more do you think can be done to encourage these new levels of engagement between public and private sector in response to the new EU programmes? And do you have any concrete plans in mind for increasing this level of participation and partnership?
Well, thank you. I think that's a very good question. And it's also a question that I think we all struggle a bit with. We need to increase public and private cooperation also in terms of research. It's, of course, increasingly important in many sectors, health being one of them. And we've tried and used different approaches over the years on how to do this. And it will also be one of the issues that we will look into and how we set up our own system. And what we've done so far is, for instance, to make sure that the Research Council and Innovation Norway, which are really important actors in our system, work closely together on mobilizing and stimulating more businesses as to apply into Horizon, for instance. So it is a major issue also here. It's clearly something that we need. It's not just related to the European programs, but it's an issue that we also need to look into back home. I think also at the local level, we see more participation, and I think the European programs do participate in or is an important reason why more and more cooperate. So it's an important question also when at the European level, how the calls are designed, and something that we also look into here at home in Norway.
Very good. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Now, unfortunately, our time for this session is up. Otherwise, it would have been wonderful to hear from Mr. Child and Ms. Hoffmann about the value proposition for the private sector and the public sector to work more closely together. But there will be more of that, I'm sure, when the strategic plan for Horizon and the implementation of Erasmus Plus are more available. And so I think for those of you who wish to follow this journey closely, please don't forget to visit the DG Education and Culture and DG Research and Innovation websites, as well as your own national resources. There will be lots more information available to you in the weeks to come. But in the meantime, I would like to thank Viviane Hoffmann, Patrick Child, and Aase Horrigmo for your time this morning. We wish you and your colleagues great success in your upcoming endeavours, and we look forward very much to the launch of the programmes ahead. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And so we shall now move on to the final session of the conference, and this is a shift in scene and a shift in perspective from European and national to perhaps more regional or municipality levels back home in Norway. And we have asked 4 key stakeholders in the Norwegian public domain to join us and to share their views on the value proposition and the practicalities of engaging in EU programs such as Horizon Europe and Erasmus+. And so we have 4 eminent people who will be joining us to inform this discussion. We've invited them to make some opening remarks for 3 to 4 minutes and to share their views on the broader EU programme landscape from a municipal or city perspective. Again, if you have specific questions for any of the speakers, please don't hesitate to enter them in the Q&A function in Zoom, and we will attempt to get to them a little later in the discussion as time allows. But in doing so, I am very pleased to welcome our 4 guests who will be speaking in the following order. First, Morten Roldan, Municipal Director of the Trondheim Municipality. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Second, we have Anita Lindahl Trosdal, Chief Advisor at the International Office in the city of Oslo. We have Thea Forsberg, Advisor and Project Manager for KS, the Norwegian Association of Local and Regional Authorities. Last but not least, Erin Fauser Pettersen, who's Division Manager at the Division of Research, Internationalization and Innovation at the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. Erin, your business card must be enormous with a title that long. But regardless, a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining this discussion about what you see as the possibilities and the opportunities, even the challenges, for Norwegian public sector actors to engage with EU programs. And so let's begin in Trondheim, a city I know quite well, having visited NTNU on a number of occasions over the last few years. Mr. Walden, what would you like to share with the audience about Trondheim's experience of engaging with the EU programs?
Thank you, Simon. The question raised was, how do we mobilize and benefit from the next generation of EU programs? And my response to this can be divided into 3 parts. One has to do with the relevance of the programs to the challenges and opportunities facing cities. The second part has to do with the city's maturity, while the third part has to do with the process of bridging city and program requirements. Firstly, I think we need to see programs that embrace and networked and multi-stakeholder approach, where technical, social, and financial mechanisms are addressed as part of an integrated whole. As a city, we have limited resources to support initiatives that fail to integrate technical solutions within a wider socio-economic context. Secondly, on the city side, there is a need to invest in system innovation, as well as involve and educate the political and administrative leaders in ways that demonstrate to them the need for investing in such system innovation. And by system innovation, I understand policy changes, new organizational designs, new functions and partnerships, as well as changes to physical and technical infrastructure in anticipation of a more consortium-based approach to wicked problems. Thirdly, training for a consortium-based approach begins well ahead of the announcement of new EU calls. This involves having clear local and regional policy objectives backed by data as a basis for an ongoing dialogue with present and future consortium partners from both academia, business, and civil society. Responding in a timely manner to large EU calls across multiple stakeholders requires a shared capacity to balance and strengths and interests. In Trondheim, we have done a series of large-scale exercises to build capacity. The University City 3.0 is a way to connect policy innovation and knowledge creation between city and university. Large EU projects such as Positive City Exchange have taught us how to balance our own interests against loyalty to an international consortium of more than 30 partners. And finally, we have developed a Center for Sustainable Development. This Geneva UN Center of Excellence is a regional partnership offering training, tools, and data to support public, academic, private project development across the county of Trøndelag. In collaboration with the county authority, the Association of Local and Regional Authorities, KS, NTNU, SINTEF, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Mid-Norway European Office, all united by the UN Sustainable Development Goals and a shared commitment to sustainable value creation. Finally, I want to address a question to Forskningsrådet. We see in Trondheim, which is probably true in many other cities as well, challenges in taking part in large-scale EU-funded projects, mainly due to lack of resources and capacity within our own organization. There are multiple projects we would like to take part in, but there is the constraint on our workforce, which also has escalated during the COVID-19 pandemic. I understand that Forskningsrådet gives financial support to find partners, networks, and relevant calls, as well as support to write application. Can we, as public sector, apply to this so that we can free up some resources and build external capacity during an application process? So, this question, can you please elaborate to us about this support? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Walden. And I will invite my colleague, Tor Ivar Eikas at RCN to think about that and possibly send me a quick answer via WhatsApp. Let's move the conversation on to the city of Oslo and Anita Lindahl Trosdal. Thank you for joining us, Anita. What observations and perspectives would you like to share with the audience this morning?
Thank you so much, Simon. I think my perspective will be to reflect a little bit on our recent experiences and how we will take that on to the next programming period. As you might know, Oslo is very active in different types of international cooperation, and always our overarching aim is, as was said, to develop and to improve our municipal services and to reach different political goals. For example, as was mentioned, we are one of the cities that have a very ambitious climate target. We aim to be virtually zero emission already in 2030. So international cooperation is key to reach this goal, as an example. And we use many different tools, and EU projects for us is one of the tools to reach these targets. And if you can have the next slide, or the first slide, I just wanted to say that we have been working with different EU projects or program for several years. We have been working with Erasmus, the youth program, Interreg, Urbact, and these are some of the benefits that we see from this type of cooperation. And you can see it's a lot, and it has to do with developing our services and also our resources. However, we see that the last 3 years, we wanted to be more strategic, and we made a project for 3 years to focus specifically on Horizon 2020. And this, in the following, I will see how we succeeded in that. In this project, we then had one person full-time to work with these projects. As Morten said, the resources available is crucial. We also had a city government decision to focus on this and to have an action plan for her to implement over these 3 years. So very shortly, the action plan had 3 very specific goals. One was to increase the number of projects that Oslo was in, 2, to increase the value of our total portfolio, and and 3, also to increase the number of projects where we had a leading role, so leading a project or even a work package, for example. And we had different action points, most of them actually focusing on internal issues. So information activities, how to improve the competence among key personnel, how to provide assistance to our experts working out in different entities in the city. We also focused on how to have a good internal organization and coordination. And for the external part, the action plan focuses on how we can ensure we have good networks, partners, and a good visibility to make us attractive as partners. And I'm very proud to tell you that my colleague Tina, she's a real Horizon 2020 expert. She has worked very well, and we have managed to increase the number of projects. We started out before this specific project with 5 being partner in 5 projects, and now we are partners in 13 projects, and 7 applications are still under assessment. So if you can have the next slide, you can just see the topics of these projects, and you can see very well that all of these are topics that are very relevant for any municipality. So we see this really as an opportunity for us to work with our challenges, and the challenges are very much based in the cities. We have also managed to increase the value of our portfolio. Today we estimate the value of directly to the city of Oslo in our portfolio to 55 million Norwegian kroner. But in addition to this, there are about 40 million to other Norwegian partners that are part in our project. So this is also very good value creation to actually be able to work with our challenges on the ground. And for the 7 applications still under assessment, if they should all go in, we would have another 60 million. So really this is also money well spent for a municipality. And based on this, we actually have our internal audit service now looking at this action plan and strategy and our success rate to see if we're actually using this opportunity well enough. And we hope to use the results of this audit also in the next few months when we try to mobilize for the coming programming period.
Great, thank you, Anita. If I can just pause you there, because I want to make sure that we have enough time for some questions which are already coming in. But I think for Thea Forsberg at KS, the Norwegian Association of Local and Regional Authorities, some of this may be very pertinent for you and some perhaps less so. I think the difference between municipalities, large cities such as Oslo, and the local and rural contexts is significantly different in a number of ways. So if we can bring your perspectives in now, and then we'll come back to some of the questions that Anita's raised around auditing, success rates, and sharing knowledge and experience amongst the Norwegian public sector communities a bit later in the discussion. So Thea, I'll give the floor to you now, if I may.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon. So I would like to say a few words based on my experience from coordinating an EU network aiming to increase public sector participation and especially participation among municipalities and regions in Horizon 2020. So I think, first of all, there is a real need to increase the overall understanding of how local and regional authorities can add real value to EU projects, not necessarily depending on their size. And you see, like we've heard earlier today, that the Commission and other EU bodies are now increasingly looking towards the local and the regional level as part of the solution to some of the great challenges we are facing. So this could be sort of climate change leading to floods, inland and coastal floods, or it could be the effects of the pandemic on the mental health of inhabitants, or even the ability to ensure quality online teaching. So it's really at the local level that we see the effects of these EU projects. And like Marthe mentioned, and also Anita, it's at the local and the regional level that these projects, which are aiming to solve these challenges, will have a real impact. And local and regional authorities are also in a position to increase the effects of projects' results by having the power to influence policy direction, for example, through designing political frameworks or even procurement standards and procedures. And as been mentioned as well, they're really close to the citizens, and this also goes for smaller municipalities. And a lot of smaller municipalities already have mechanisms and systems for co-creation and citizens' involvement, which will be a really important factor in designing some of the next generation of EU projects. So I think I forgot to say switch slides. I'm already on my third slide, I think. That's the one, thank you very much. A great example of someone who's done this is Buskerud, which is now Viken County, together with Modum municipality through the BOOST project, which is coordinated by SINTEF. Now, this project aims to set the standards for schools across Europe to increase mental resilience and provide students with tools for better life skills. And here, Viken actually had a really important role in initiating the project. They read the call and they saw how this could really enable them to take a clear policy design role by linking the project to regional initiatives on public health and prevention, such as, for example, preventing dropouts. And they were important as well because they were able to bring Modum municipality along, which is a small to medium-sized municipality, as one of the partners, where Modum can now benefit from this method now being tested out in their schools. And then next slide, please. So another great example is the DISH project, which is an Erasmus Plus project. I don't know, maybe the Western Norway University will say a few words about this because they are also a partner here actually, together with, among others, Sjaastad municipality. Now, this project aims to test and develop models to promote digital skills for health professionals. And I mean, this is a really important project for Sjaastad as a small municipality because they are faced with having to ensure good quality care and being faced with decreasing resources to meet the demographic demand. Last slide, please. So the last thing I would like to say, and it's mirroring what Morten and Anita has already been mentioning, is that to benefit from the next generation of EU programs, it's really essential to have a systematic approach to EU participation. And this also goes for smaller municipalities. You have to make sure that you have the support and the commitment of political administrative management, because without this, it will be really difficult to make sure that you have the resources, the right people internally, and the time to prioritize what is ultimately quite a challenging application process. And it will be really difficult to manage the project and deliver results if you're lucky enough to actually get funded. I believe also in small municipalities, as well as larger cities, being successful requires the ability to analyze project calls and having an understanding of the EU programs as tools for implementing EU policy. So take advantage of all the help you can get through, for example, the Research Council, DIKU, and Innovation Norway. They do offer a lot of really great courses, and some of these are directly targeted towards public sector actors. So by understanding what the EU is really aiming to achieve through these programs, you will be able to describe what you will add to the project as a partner and how including you will bring real added value to the projects.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those perspectives. And I think we will come back to a couple of these questions about coordination, knowledge sharing, a systematic approach to planning a little later in the conversation. But let's turn to our final speaker, Einar Fauser-Pettersen at the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. What would you like to share with us from your viewpoint and experience of mobilizing to engage with EU programs, Einar?
Well, thank you. Well, I get some perspectives from University College or University of Applied Sciences. So if I could have the slides, please. I don't know if they're on. But anyway, we're situated along the west coast of Norway, and we have a working life-oriented profile and collaborate with a number of external actors in the region. But also we work systematically to, you can just go into the next slide, please. To work systematically to further develop and expand the network of collaborating actors. And we also believe that Erasmus Plus and Horizon Europe can be good funding mechanisms for do this. Next, please. So the European Commission is currently working to finalize the work programs under Horizon 2020, Europe. And there are several interesting topics where we have high expertise and where it would be necessary to collaborate with public institutions. This is just to show 2 examples of this, and different, one in education and one in health. I don't think I'll go into them to use the time for that. So next, please. And this is an example of an ongoing project. The RRI to scale is under the Horizon 2020. And here both HVL and Vestland County are partners. In this project, regional dilemmas from 4 regions are studied, and the case from Vestland deals with the cruise traffic in Flåm, which is a small place located in Sognefjorden. Next, please. So how do we mobilize to increase participation in the new framework programs? Well, internally, we find that it's vital to involve and engage leaders at all different levels, as well as the researchers and the administration. As a part of the work to increase international publication and EU proposal development at HVL, 13 selected excellent research groups now receive targeted support and follow-up. Also, we continuously work to strengthen and focus the administrative support, and also try to utilize things such as the peers funding opportunities from the Research Council, as well as the opportunity for support from the national contact points, P&O consultants, and so forth. Externally, HVL is involved in several EU networks in our region. And among other things, we're also members of both the West Norway office and the Stavanger Region European office in Brussels. Next, please. So HVL already collaborate with the public sector in Erasmus Plus funded projects. We have several strategic partnerships within the field of education and health, where we collaborate with municipalities, hospitals, kindergartens, healthcare, and schools. A good example is the Activate project, where researchers from HVL collaborate with universities and schools in Norway and in several other European countries, and will train primary school teachers in combining physical activity and theoretical training. Next, please. We see even more possibilities in the new Erasmus Plus program. Several of the project categories emphasizes cooperation between higher education institutions and enterprises, public sectors, and work life. Project outcomes can be innovation in education, exchange of knowledge, best practice, and developing competitive education. So the project categories marked in red have a special focus on this. The Centers of Vocational Excellence has already been mentioned by Viviane and Hoffmann today, and also the Innovation Alliances, who will fund a large consortium of higher education institutions and public and private sector.
Very good. Einar, I think Irene, if I may, I'm going to pause there. That's a fascinating, I mean, it's a wonderful set of projects. Okay, perfect timing. Well, thank you for giving us an overview of some of the diverse set of European projects that you're already involved in. So we have about 18 to 20 minutes left for a few practical questions and discussion amongst you all. And I think the first one is really about planning and preparation. What concrete tips do you have for new actors who are joining today's conference and are considering getting engaged in EU programs? You've mentioned the importance of political leadership and buy-in. You've mentioned the importance of a systematic approach and early preparations. But what other very concrete first steps would you recommend across the board, whether that's engaging with the national agencies, finding local partners who've already got experience? What would you like to share with the audience about preparing to engage for the first time? Who would like to start with this? Perhaps Morten, would you like to go first?
I can do that. First of all, I think it's important to be assured that these programs respond to your own policies and strategies. Then it's, I think for the newcomers, it's important to seek advice to those who has done this before. And we have done that. And also not only Innovation Norway and the Research Council, but also to the municipalities that have been through application processes. So that's the first step, I think. Take and we will surely invite people into Trondheim municipality to talk about that.
Have a warm invitation to cooperate, and I'm sure the same will be true from Anita, from Thea, or Irene. Would you like to add to this in terms of practical first steps and preparing to engage? Anita,
yes,
would you like to go
I can
first?
maybe start to say a few words.
Okay, Thea, over to you.
Thank you. Well, I'm really in agreement with Martin here, and I also think that for newcomers who are sort of really engaged and really want to try this and think it's some benefits in it, I think it's important to also educate your own management and your own key stakeholders within the organizations and really make them see the relevance of EU project participation to your organization's goals. Because I think you really need the support of these people if you want to take it to the next step.
And Anita, would you like to add something further to this?
Yes. I think it will be, if you're first started, to really look into your own strategies and your own main priorities and go from there. And also, I think to have the resources available to support you and not underestimate the time. But in that, it also that the process also has some value. So if you're not successful necessarily the first time, this is still something that you can use because you've elaborated your partnership with research institutions locally and perhaps also internationally with the business community. So make sure that you also have this as a target, not just to have the result in with the application the first time, but use the process also to develop what you're working on.
Very good, thank you for that. So let's move on to another question, and perhaps Irene, I'll invite you to respond first. What have you learned from the last few years? What are the, I don't want to say mistakes, but let's say unanticipated consequences of going through the process of engaging with EU programs that you would want to share as a learning, an insight for those who are planning to follow in your footsteps?
I think actually some of the points that was mentioned in the last question addresses this as well, but I would say that a main lesson is that if your organization wishes to succeed in EU programs, there is no middle ground. You have to go for it and rig your organization accordingly. As for Horrigmo, we took some important steps during the last program period, and we'll sort of build further on from this from now on. I think that's important, and as well as what we went into in the last question, to ensure that the projects are well embedded in the organization and to achieve an optimal process, both pre-grant as well as post-grant.
Very good, thank you for that. So, Anita, Morten, Thea, would you like to add anything in terms of lessons learned and mistakes to avoid? Morten, let's go to you first.
I think it's important to understand that large EU projects, they are challenging in different ways across the life scale of the project. So submitting a winning proposal is just one step on the way. I think it's important for a city perspective that cities need to have a clear policy objective and invest in a strong local team to fulfill its obligation to the EU once the funding is awarded. And we have had success with that in Trondheim. And another experience is that this public academia private partnership has been given us some possibilities and opportunities in other sectors than just the EU application. Thank you.
Thank you, Morten. Anita, Thea, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, I can add that one challenge that we met is that you work with some of our experts. We're a very big municipality, and they might be very enthusiastic. They know all the arguments for why you should go into this or that project, but then they fail in the process of getting their management on board locally. So we've been working on different levels to be able to ensure that we have all levels of management, as Irene also said, on board. And we see that this is often the case, that you have these really enthusiastic experts, but they don't really get anywhere. So working together with our experts is really important, I think, and to help them use the right arguments for why this is a good idea.
Very good. Thank you for that. So let's segue into another question, and perhaps Thea, you could take the lead in responding to this. It's about the topic of knowledge sharing and the platforms for cooperation that you have available to you as public sector actors. Do you feel that you have enough connecting points and platforms to share these kinds of insights? Could more be done to increase the flow of knowledge and experience between municipalities, cities and regions? What would be your ideal? What would you like to see in the next few years to help you better position yourselves and mobilize for EU programs?
Yeah, I think there can never be enough of these connection points and places to get knowledge and transfer knowledge. We have in KS, together with the Research Council this year, we have initiated a mentorship program for municipalities and regions who are really eager to apply for Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. And we see that working this closely with a small number of municipalities is really valuable, because you can follow the process from step one and towards the maturing throughout the process. And I think sometimes that's necessary, to be that close to potential participants, especially when you're talking about organizations who don't have a lot of experience from before. So it's great to have a lot of these seminars and knowledge sharing workshops and everything, but it only gets you so far. So I think it's necessary to use a bit more resources on following certain actors who are really engaged and really serious a bit more closely in order to get them past that finish line.
Very good. Irene, would you agree with that? And also Anita and Morten, if you want to think about some additional comments. But Irene first, what would you have to say?
Yes, surely, I agree with that. You have to work along several lines and use different kinds of context points. And if I could sort of transfer to our internal work, that's kind of what Thea mentioned about following up more sort of smaller kind of groups. Internally, we have done this in the group of 13 research groups that are getting sort of a more targeted and focused follow-up on different levels to find their way into the EU programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita, Morten, anything that you would like to contribute on this access to knowledge and the sharing of experience and insight? Morten, if you would like to go first.
Yes, I agree with Thea and Anita, of course, but I think it's not only necessary to have arenas for the experts that are deep into the projects and follow that, but I think also it's important with arenas for the stakeholders like politicians and administrative leaders. So over the last 2 years, we have established an arena called Arena Unicum, which looks into the partnerships between the university and the municipality cities in Norway. And for the last year, we got the politicians on the team. And I think that's really important. But as Thea and I also have mentioned, without the support from the politician, this will be very, very hard.
Very good. And I'm also pleased to say, Morten, we have a response from Asheim to say that actually several municipalities have already benefited from their schemes. So yes, it is indeed open to municipalities to apply for these kinds of support instruments. So let's transition to the next question from the audience. And Anita, I'm going to come to you first with this, because I think Oslo has an enviable position vis-a-vis international cooperation. And the question from the audience is, whether or not you as public sector agencies are typically being approached by others to engage in European programs, or whether you are able to be proactive in reaching out across borders and finding international partners to commit to projects that you want to drive forward. And how do you handle that kind of process?
I think it works both ways. We can definitely see that we are quite attractive in the fact that we do get a lot of contacts, especially since being the European Green Capital, we are now more known for this green agenda. So we do get a lot of interest, but we also see that we need to sometimes also work out our own partnerships, and then we use our international networks. We have organizations where we're members, where we know which cities are strong on this or that topic, and we also use all the contacts that we have from previous projects. So there are different avenues to pursue, I think. But obviously, if we want to go into big projects, we also need to work with people that we trust. So we start with the ones that we know and that we trust already, and then we build on that.
Thank you. And so broadening it out to Thea, to Morten and to Einar, is this a similar perspective for you, not being the capital? And are there other avenues that you use to support finding international partners, either perhaps with the Research Council or Innovation Norway or DIKU? Who would like to take that first? Perhaps Thea, let's ask you.
Yeah, I can start. So we, with smaller municipalities, maybe in particular, but anyway, with sort of all organizations with a lot less experience than maybe Oslo and Trondheim now is really starting to have, we see that having close relations to research institutes or universities or university colleges in the region is a really great starting point, because often these actors have broader networks also internationally, which they can bring into consortium. So having good connections with your regional university partner or institution partner is a really great starting point for building good partnerships.
Well, I think that would certainly be true for people in Trondheim interested in EU programs. Morten, what would you like to add to that?
Yes, I think we have the same situation probably as Oslo, and that is because of the NTNU, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. So we have a lot of contacts every week, I think, from all over Europe to be partners in some EU projects. But over the last years, we have, in cooperation with the NTNU and SINTEF and others, been more restrictive and more proactive, I think. So, but it's of course challenging when you don't have a big team of international advisors in your organization. But I think we have been more proactive over the last years and focused on more specific projects, and that will be the true also in the future, the years to come.
Thank you. Well, it seems to be a red thread that we tap into universities as excellent connecting hubs, both domestically and internationally. And I think that brings us to our final question for this session. And I'll turn to Einar first to ask this. And it's to end on an upbeat and optimistic note. And the question is simply, what are you most excited about? With Horizon Europe and Erasmus Plus just around the corner, what is it that's really exciting your organization and driving this passion, this commitment to get involved?
Oh, well, I expect there could be several things, and kind of maybe you would get different answers depending on who you asked. But from my perspective, I think, and from a sort of a bit raised level, I think the new mission, the concept of the missions and the role they can play towards reaching ambitious goals in several areas and important areas is kind of exciting to see what this will be. And also I'd like to kind of emphasize the open science, which was already much encouraged in Horizon 2020, but the goal of Horizon Europe, I understand, is to kind of reinforce openness, and with the open data, for example, this is really exciting and interesting to follow how it will come out. And also for the Erasmus program, as it hasn't been kind of launched yet, we are not clear, of course, about the details, but we welcome the new initiatives such as the Teacher Education Alliance and the Innovation Alliances. It's exciting. And also, I would say that overall, the concept of finding our way into the new EU programs will be an interesting and exciting journey.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And so for our three other speakers, very briefly, if you can, any headline messages for you about what lies ahead and why it's so exciting? Anita, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I look very much forward to all the European Green Deal calls. We're really excited on how we can contribute in delivering on that. And we're really curious about this new mission on the climate neutral cities. And we really look forward to exploring what that will mean and how we can go into that.
Wonderful. Morten, what would you like to add?
Yes, I think on general basis that both Horizon Europe and European Green Deal and Erasmus are very interesting programs for us. As I said in my pitch, we are now delivering on a Horizon 2020 project, Positive City Exchange, in collaboration with 30 other partners. And we are currently building on this project to respond to the call for climate neutral and social innovative cities. So there is a call on coming up soon from Trondheim. Thank you.
Perfect. And the closing word for you, Thea.
Thank you very much. Of course, I agree with everything that's been said, but I would also like to say that the thought behind creating synergies between the different EU programs is something that excites me and makes me curious in terms of how it's going to look in practice, and also with Norway, as we don't participate in all the EU programs, and how this is going to work for us as partners in projects.
So thank you for mentioning synergies. That in many ways is the great question mark for the entire European research and innovation community for the years to come. Well, listen, we are approaching the end of the conference. We will now have 3 short videos from the leaders of Innovation Norway, from the Research Council and from DIKU. But before we go to their calls to action for the public sector in Norway to engage with the EU programs starting next year, I would like to thank Anita, Thea, Eirin and Morten for joining us and for sharing your experiences today. So we wish you all the success with your future endeavours, and thank you again. And now I'm very pleased to introduce 3 closing statements. First, from Håkon Haugli, Chief Executive Officer at Innovation Norway. Second, from Harald Nibale, Director General at DIKU, the Norwegian Agency for International Cooperation and Quality Enhancement in Higher Education, and Kristen Danielsen, Executive Director at the Research Council of Norway, the 3 partners in NorCore who have done such a good job in arranging today's event. If we can please play the tape and hear from the NorCore leaders on their vision for the future.
Our world is facing a series of major challenges, many of which are owned by and can only be solved by municipalities and regions working with research and business. Horizon Europe aims to address these challenges. Innovation Norway has worked with municipalities and regions for a long time, and we are excited about the opportunities that Horizon Europe provides us to advance public-private cooperation across Norway to address these challenges. We have competent advisors at all our regional offices, so to all those of you who represent municipalities and regions, please contact our offices to explore how we can utilize the Horizon Europe toolbox to address challenges that we know that you are concerned about.
Dear colleagues and friends, the EU programs offer plenty of opportunities to both municipalities and regional authorities in Norway. We think it is important to see how these programs can be utilized to support your priorities and our priorities. Actually, most of the European priorities are also Norwegian priorities. We are really happy to see that the new Erasmus Plus program, as well as the Commission communication on European education area, once again make this evident. Many of you are responsible for schools in your areas. In the next Erasmus Plus program, you will find plenty of opportunities for exchanges, professional development, and collaboration. My agency, DIKU, is responsible for implementing large parts of the Erasmus Plus program in Norway, including providing information and guidance. I have with me an excellent team of colleagues who can be contacted if you have any questions related to the Erasmus Plus program. The COVID-19 situation challenges international collaboration and mobility. At the same time, the current crisis has shown that international as well as cross-sectoral collaboration is crucial to find the good and joint solutions. So, thank you so much for your attention today. I hope that this webinar has inspired you to follow us into a new generation of EU programs. Thank you very much.
Dear all, creating a good and sustainable life for your inhabitants is your task. The European Commission has the same goals, and in Horizon Europe, the public sector is encouraged to cooperate with academia and businesses to create solutions to major challenges at community level and beyond. Your competence is in demand in the EU. If you join Horizon Europe projects, you will be part of networks that are at the forefront of research and innovation, and you will meet colleagues that have the same challenges as yourself. The Research Council of Norway can assist you in your application process, giving special courses and even financial support. Please contact our national contact points or NorCore for more information. Participation in Horizon Europe is investing in the future. Good luck with your application.
And with those inspiring words from the leaders of the partners of NorCore, we bring today's event to a close. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of our speakers who've given so generously of their time to inform today's discussions. Second, I would like to thank you very much for joining what I hope you found to be an enlightening and important set of conversations with some of the key figures in the European research, innovation and education landscape. Third of all, I'd very much like to thank the core team from Innovation Norway, from the Research Council of Norway and from DIKU, in particular Hans-Erik Melandsø, Tor Ivar Eikas and Ragnhild Solviberg, for all of the work that they and their teams have done to put together today's excellent event. And my apologies if I've mispronounced any Norwegian names along the way. It's not always the easiest thing for us Anglophones to do. And so with that, I leave you with the challenge and the opportunity. Horizon Europe and Erasmus Plus await you just around the corner. I wish you and your colleagues much success in your endeavours in engaging with these programmes. And above all, I wish you a safe and healthy winter of preparation until the new programmes begin. Thank you, and a very good day to you all.